Cannibalism in Pennsylvania. Have you ever wondered if your favorite restaurant could hide something truly horrifying? What happens when the most innocent-looking person in town hides the darkest secrets? Could a simple dinner reservation be the start of your worst nightmare? What if the person you trust most is leading a double life, and you're the last to know? In Ashwood, that's when the questions began. After the news broke, panic swept through the town. It was plastered on every TV screen. Body parts, scattered like grotesque pieces of a puzzle, had been found deep in the woods. At first, we clung to the hope that it was the work of a wild animal, something primal. But then, the truth clawed its way out. The remains weren't just torn apart. They were meticulously butchered, carved with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Ashwood wasn't haunted by the unknown anymore. We had a serial killer in our midst, and no one knew who was next. The news said the remains suggested the killer had a disturbing taste: human flesh. A cannibal. It sounded like a horror story, but it was real. People were terrified to go outside, and the town quickly became a ghost town. But here's the thing. No one suspected Jeffrey Dalmeer. Why would they? He was the quiet owner of Curry House, this cozy little Indian restaurant on the corner of Main Street. I'd been there dozens of times, had his famous lamb curry. Dalmeer was the kind of man everyone liked, always smiling, always polite, with a warmth that made you feel welcome the moment you stepped into his restaurant. He'd chat casually as he took your order, asking about your day or recommending his special. You'd never guess that behind those kind eyes was a man living a nightmare of his own making. No one knew that during his travels to Papua New Guinea, he'd picked up a taste for something far darker than curry spices. During the day, he was Ashwood's favorite chef. But when night fell, something in him shifted, a Jekyll and Hyde transformation. The charm and kindness drained from his face, replaced by something far more sinister. His calm demeanor would twist into something dark, something vicious. At night, Dalmeer wasn't just a chef. He was a predator, hunting for far more than a good recipe. The police were at a dead end until a single mistake turned everything around. One night, they found something that didn't belong near the scene of the latest murder, a severed finger, small and delicate. It wasn't just that the victim had been butchered, they realized something had been left behind. As they examined the crime scene, a crucial detail caught their attention. A faint, greasy fingerprint on a discarded napkin, one that matched those at the victim's home. It seemed out of place in the woods, but the logo on the napkin wasn't. It was from Dalmeer's Curry House. The link was undeniable. The napkin led the cops straight to Dalmeer, and suddenly the pieces began to fall into place. The victim had eaten at his restaurant that night, his last meal on Earth. Could it be a coincidence? The investigators didn't think so. They paid Dalmeer a visit at his restaurant, casually asking if he'd seen anything unusual. "Subscribe if you're not a cannibal." Dalmeer greeted the officers with his usual warmth, an almost unsettling charm that didn't fit the gravity of the situation. They questioned him about the recent murders, probing gently at first, then harder, trying to break the facade. Dalmeer never faltered. As if anticipating their every move, he smiled softly and, with a casual wave of his hand, offered them a meal. The officers declined. This was an interrogation, not a dinner date. But as the questioning dragged on, the scent of something mouth-watering began wafting through the air. It was subtle at first, but soon became irresistible, a rich, intoxicating aroma of spices and slow-cooked meat. It hung in the air like a fog, wrapping itself around them. One officer shifted in his seat, his stomach betraying him with a low growl. Another glanced toward the kitchen, clearly tempted. Despite their focus, the hunger gnawed at them. Finally, one of them caved. "Maybe we'll try a bite after all," Dalmeer smirked. Moments later, he emerged from the kitchen with steaming bowls of curry. They thanked him, unaware that the evidence they were searching for was now sitting on the table before them. I watched the footage later, the sickening realization hitting me like a kick in my nuts. The officers were devouring Dalmeer's secret, consuming his crime with every bite. The missing victim was right there, yummy in their donutty tummy. Evidence consumed, Dalmeer slipped through the grasp of the law's iron fist. But the story didn't end there. Days later, forensics made a disturbing discovery. They found traces of Dalmeer's DNA in the victim, he was arrested immediately. But there was another person's DNA tangled with the remains. They thought it was a mistake, but soon it became clear. Dalmeer hadn't acted alone. Someone else had been there. Someone he'd trained. Someone who shared his dark taste for flesh. An accomplice was still out there, preparing to continue the sick legacy Dalmeer had begun. The town fell into a new wave of terror, knowing that whoever this man was, they were blending into the shadows, hiding in plain sight. Then came the final revelation, one that sent chills through every officer's bone. The forensic team uncovered a disturbing connection buried deep in Dalmeer's past. His real name was Jeff Doe. He had been adopted as a child, abandoned at birth. The DNA they'd found with the victim, it was his twin brother. "Twins are evil," one of the officers muttered. Separated at birth, they somehow reunited not long before the murders began. Together, they had formed a grotesque pact, a partnership that bound them by blood and shared darkness. With Dalmeer behind bars, only his twin remained, out there, somewhere, carrying on the horror they'd created. The police had captured one killer but not the other, and this time, they had no idea where he was or when he would strike again. That news spread through Ashwood like wildfire, leaving the town in a suffocating grip of fear. People no longer felt safe, even with Dalmeer behind bars. The thought of his twin, still out there, gnawed at everyone's minds. And the worst part? He could be anyone. The friendly neighbor, the smiling cashier, the chef at your favorite restaurant. The once bustling eateries of Ashwood began to empty. People whispered over their dinners, wondering if they could trust the chef. Every bite was taken with caution, every meal tainted by the unshakable thought, what if he's still cooking? The fear was palpable. Ashwood wasn't just haunted by the memory of Dalmeer, it was haunted by the shadow of his twin, who could be in the kitchens of unsuspecting restaurants, continuing the twisted legacy in secret. And so, the people of Ashwood ate in silence, their once beloved dining spots transformed into places of quiet dread, because no one knew whose meal would be his last, or what special ingredient might be lurking within it. As for me, I relocated to Texas, became a vegetarian, and never ate curry again. Dalmeer may have been caught, but the real nightmare had only just begun. And Ashwood now lives with the question, what's in your curry? Want to hear more stories like this? Please subscribe and click the playlist in the top left to uncover more terrifying tales. What you eat next could be more than you bargained for.